In the 1990s, scary stories started spreading through Venezuela. People were talking about something so horrible that most folks didn't believe it could be real. But these weren't just made-up stories. They were true. And the man behind these crimes was one of the most dangerous killers South America has ever seen. This is the story of José Gómez, a man who didn't just kill people. What he did after killing them was much, much worse. José Gómez was born on May 15, 1957, in the mountains of Venezuela. His parents were part of a rebel group that lived far away from cities and towns. They lived deep in the jungle where no one could find them. José was the third kid in a big family of 10 children. They all lived in one tiny room with no electricity and no running water. Life was really, really hard. Every day was about finding enough food to eat. While other kids played games, José had to work in the fields. He helped his parents grow food from morning until night. Most nights, the whole family went to bed hungry because there wasn't enough food for everyone. People who knew José said he was a quiet kid who always listened to his parents. His mom and dad were nice to him, but they were so poor that life was just hard for everyone. When José became a teenager, things started to change. He began acting weird in ways that scared people. The first bad thing he did was steal animals from other farms. At first, people thought he was just hungry, but then they saw what he really did with these animals. José would catch chickens and do terrible things to them while they were still conscious. He would harm them in ways that showed this wasn't about hunger or quick killing for food. Then he would end their suffering, but in a slow, deliberate way that seemed to give him satisfaction. But here's the really disturbing part. He would consume the meat completely raw, like he couldn't wait to cook it. He actually preferred it that way. The most shocking thing was how he would collect and drink the animal's life essence as it drained from the creature. He would cup his hands to catch every drop as it poured out of the animal. Then he would consume it while the animal was still twitching and moving. This wasn't because he was hungry. He seemed to genuinely enjoy the entire ritual. His family and neighbors thought this was weird, but they didn't know how bad things would get. As José got older, he started talking to people who weren't there. He would have full conversations with voices that only he could hear. His parents thought evil spirits had gotten into him. But really, José was getting a serious mental illness called schizophrenia. No one knew how to help him because they lived so far from doctors and hospitals. In the 1980s, José left his family and started living on the streets. He moved to a city called San Cristobal. He became homeless and had to beg for food and money. José looked terrible. His hair was dirty and messy. His clothes were like rags. His eyes looked empty and scary. Most people tried to stay away from him. To the police, he was just another homeless person. José spent his days looking through trash cans for food. He slept under bridges and in empty buildings. Sometimes he would ask people for money, but his weird way of talking made people uncomfortable. But inside José's head, things were getting much worse. The voices were getting louder. He kept thinking about eating raw meat and drinking blood. Living alone on the streets with no help was making his mental illness much worse. José met two other homeless men named Baltazar Mourinho and Antonio Guerrero. They all lived together under a bridge and tried to help each other survive. For a little while, this gave José some friendship and help that he really needed. In 1995, José and Baltazar got into a big fight. We don't know exactly what they fought about, but José ended up killing Baltazar. What happened next changed José forever. José was alone with Baltazar's dead body. He hadn't eaten good food in weeks. His mental illness was making him think crazy thoughts, and he kept remembering how he used to drink animal blood when he was young. That's when José did something absolutely horrific. He began to treat Baltazar's remains the same way he used to treat those farm animals. He used his bare hands and his teeth to tear away pieces of flesh and muscle, consuming it completely raw, just like he had done with the chickens and other animals years before. When Antonio came back and couldn't find Baltazar, he got suspicious. He asked José where Baltazar was. That's when Antonio discovered fragments of what used to be Baltazar scattered throughout their living area. He was so scared that he ran straight to the police. The police didn't believe Antonio at first. They thought he was just a crazy homeless person making up stories. But Antonio kept insisting, so they finally went to check. When the police got to the bridge, they found José sitting calmly with skeletal remains and crimson stains all around him. There were fragments of what used to be Baltazar distributed throughout the area. They arrested José right away. The story of José eating another person shocked all of Venezuela. The newspapers wrote about it, and everyone was talking about this cannibal. But when doctors checked José's mental health, they said he was too sick to go to trial. He had schizophrenia so bad that he didn't really understand what he had done was wrong. Because of this, he couldn't go to prison like a normal murderer. Instead, José was sent to a mental hospital for treatment. For about 2 years, this was probably the best life José had ever lived. He got medicine for his mental illness. He had a bed to sleep in and got 3 meals every day. The doctors thought José was getting better. In 1997, they decided he was well enough to leave the hospital. They gave him pills to take for his mental illness and told him to keep seeing doctors. But there was one big problem. José had nowhere to live and no way to take care of himself. The system completely failed José. Nobody was watching him to make sure he took his medicine or went to his doctor appointments. Within a few weeks, José stopped taking his pills and was back on the streets. The government lost track of him completely. This was a huge mistake that would cost many people their lives. By the late 1990s, José had built himself a little shack under a bridge near a river called Rio Tobs. He made it out of pieces of wood and plastic he found. He hid it in thick bushes so nobody could see it. At first, José tried to satisfy his craving for raw meat by catching wild animals. But something had changed in him. Animal meat wasn't enough anymore. He had tasted human flesh. And that's what he wanted. His first victim after getting out of the hospital was a man named Manuel. José had met Manuel in the mental hospital, and Manuel had been really nice to him. After they both got out, José stayed in touch with Manuel. In November 1998, José invited Manuel to come visit his shack by the river. He told Manuel they could share a meal and catch up. But when Manuel arrived, José attacked him with a long, sharp stick. He stabbed Manuel hard enough to kill him. But José didn't just eat Manuel himself. He decided to share the meat with other homeless people in the area. He carefully dissected Manuel's remains and made meat pies called empanadas. He prepared them using traditional cooking methods and gave them to other hungry people living in the area. The people who ate José's empanadas said they were delicious, the best meat they had ever tasted. They had no idea they were eating a human being. José enjoyed watching them eat his victim. After killing Manuel, José started killing people regularly. The area around the Rio Tobs River became his hunting ground. It was the perfect place to find the kind of victims he wanted. José was very picky about who he killed. He didn't want to kill children because he said they were too pure. He didn't like killing women much either because he said they tasted too sweet. What José really wanted was young, strong men with lots of muscle. The river area was perfect for finding these kinds of victims. Lots of young men came there to exercise and jog. Workers also walked through the area going to and from their jobs. These men were usually alone, which made them easy targets. Even though José was small and looked weak, he was good at surprising people. He knew the area really well, so he could hide and wait for the right moment to attack. Most people saw him as just a harmless homeless man, so they weren't afraid of him. José would hide near the walking paths with his sharp stick. When a man came by alone, José would jump out and stab him or hit him with rocks. The surprise attack made up for José being smaller and weaker than his victims. One of his victims was a man named Francisco Lopez, who worked collecting sand from the river. Like the others, Francisco was young and strong, and he was walking alone when José killed him. After each murder, José would drag the body back to his shack. He had become very good at cutting up human bodies. He used different tools to separate the parts he liked to eat from the parts he didn't want. José had developed specific preferences about different parts of the human anatomy. He particularly favored the muscular areas of the legs, especially the lower leg muscles. He claimed that internal organs had an interesting flavor profile, but required extensive seasoning, so he would preserve hearts and other organs in containers with various herbs and spices. He would create broths from certain facial features and use other parts to make stocks and soups. He also developed a taste for abdominal areas and muscle tissue. But he was actually health conscious about his cannibalism. He avoided consuming overweight victims because he was concerned about their cholesterol levels. José described the taste of human flesh as being similar to really high-quality, well-seasoned pork. The parts he found less appealing, extremities like hands and feet, as well as heads, he would simply discard. These rejected body parts began to accumulate around his makeshift shelter and along the riverbank. Eventually, all these discarded remains would become the evidence trail that led to his capture. For months, people started disappearing around the river area. Families would report their sons, brothers, and husbands missing. But the police didn't realize all these disappearances were connected. The police thought different things were happening. Maybe drug dealers were killing people. Maybe there were gang wars. Maybe people were getting robbed and murdered. They didn't think one person was responsible for all the missing men. As more and more people went missing, the families and the community started getting really scared. Some people thought maybe a cult was doing human sacrifices. Others thought devil worshippers were killing people. But none of these ideas really made sense because the victims didn't have anything in common. The truth finally came out on February 12th, 1999. Some security guards were walking around the river area doing their regular patrol. What they found changed everything. First, they discovered the dismembered remains of 2 people. The bodies had been systematically taken apart and disposed of in the vegetation. Right away, they could tell this wasn't a normal murder. Someone had been consuming portions of these people. When more police came to search the area, they found 6 more bodies. All of them had been cut up and partially eaten. These were men who had been reported missing over the past few months. The news spread fast, and everyone in the area started panicking. A cannibal had been killing and eating people for months, and nobody knew it was happening. When the police were trying to figure out who could be doing this, someone remembered the homeless cannibal from 1995. Could it be the same person? The police decided to check all the homeless camps near the river. That's when they found José's hidden shack in the bushes. When they went inside José's shack, they couldn't believe what they saw. It was like a human butcher shop. There were storage containers everywhere filled with prepared human flesh. Some contained raw tissue soaking in marinades and strange preservatives. Others held cooked human meat that was still warm from recent preparation. Hidden throughout the shelter were human hands and heads, stored and organized like they were normal food inventory. José's cooking area contained pots, utensils, and cutting tools that were all stained with dried crimson residue from being used repeatedly to prepare human meals. While the police were looking at all this horrible stuff, José came walking out of the bushes like nothing was wrong. He acted completely normal, like he was just coming home from a walk. When the police asked who he was, José told them his name without trying to run or fight. Even worse, he immediately started confessing to killing and eating people. He talked about it like it was no big deal. José explained exactly how he chose his victims and how he killed them. He talked about which parts of the human body tasted the best and how he liked to cook them. He showed no shame or sadness about what he had done. The police quickly figured out that this was the same José who had been caught eating someone in 1995. He was charged with murdering 11 men, but everyone thought he had probably killed many more people. Once again, the newspapers went crazy with the story. They called José the man-eater and the Venezuelan Hannibal Lecter. Everyone in the country was talking about this cannibal who had been living among them. People were really angry and wanted José to be executed, or at least go to prison for life. But there was a problem. José was still mentally ill. When doctors examined José, they said his schizophrenia was even worse than before. He still couldn't understand that what he did was wrong. This meant he couldn't have a normal trial like other murderers. Instead of going to prison, José was given something called an indefinite security measure. This basically meant he would be locked up forever, but not technically as a convicted criminal. This created a lot of problems. José wasn't exactly a prisoner, but he wasn't exactly a patient either. Nobody knew what to do with him long term. In 2002, they tried to move José to a special psychiatric hospital called Babula. But the hospital refused to take him because they said he was too dangerous for their other patients. So José ended up stuck in a regular detention center that wasn't really equipped to handle someone like him. He stayed there for years, with judges regularly reviewing his case and deciding he was still too dangerous to release. José's story should have ended with him being locked up forever. But in September 2016, something terrible happened at the prison where he was being held. The prison was overcrowded and badly managed. The prisoners started a riot that got completely out of control. Armed inmates took over parts of the prison and took guards and visitors as hostages. The riot lasted for weeks. Videos came out showing prisoners torturing and hurting their hostages. As things got worse and worse, some prisoners started doing unthinkable things to survive. Two young men named Anthony Corrier and Juan Herrera became victims of the violence. Both were in prison for small crimes like robbery. Juan's father said his son had begged to be moved to a different prison before the riot started because he could sense how dangerous things were getting. According to people who survived the riot, Juan was attacked by about 40 gang members. They inflicted multiple wounds on him and suspended him in a way that caused him to lose consciousness and eventually pass away. But the violence didn't stop there. José, even though he was old and had been locked up for years, took control of Juan's remains after his death. He proceeded to dismember the body just like he used to do by the river. Some portions he prepared using boiling methods. Other portions he cooked using grilling techniques. Then he distributed the prepared meat to other prisoners to consume. People say José did this to 3 different prisoners who were killed during the riot. He had returned to his old role of being both executioner and chef, preparing human flesh for others to eat. The families of these victims were told their loved ones had been murdered, but nobody told them about the cannibalism. When lawyers said they had video proof of what happened, the government said it couldn't be proven and refused to investigate properly. Today, José Gómez is still locked up. He's now 67 years old and has been in custody for over 25 years without ever having a real trial. Human rights groups say his case shows how messed up Venezuela's justice system is. Reports say that José takes medicine for his mental illness, does small jobs around his cell block, and hasn't been violent since the 2016 riot. He seems stable as long as he's taking his medication and being watched. But his case raises a lot of difficult questions. Some people say keeping him locked up forever protects society from someone who has proven he will kill and eat people whenever he gets the chance. Other people say it's wrong to keep someone locked up forever without a proper trial, no matter how terrible their crimes were. José's story shows us what can happen when mental health systems fail. It shows what happens when poverty, isolation, and untreated mental illness all come together. And it shows what happens when warning signs are ignored until it's too late. His victims, Baltazar, Manuel, Francisco, Juan, Anthony, and all the others whose names we might never know, paid the ultimate price because society couldn't figure out how to help José before he became a monster. The scariest part is that José's case might not be unique. How many other dangerous people are out there right now with untreated mental illness? How many warning signs are we missing in our own communities? José Gómez forces us to think about some really uncomfortable questions. How do we deal with people whose mental illness makes them dangerous? How do we protect society while still treating sick people humanely? And how do we make sure the systems that are supposed to help people don't fail so badly that monsters are created? The story reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are real people who were failed by the world around them. It makes us wonder what other horrors might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. So what do you think? Could there be other people like José Gómez living among us right now with dangerous mental illness that nobody knows about? Are we missing warning signs in our own neighborhoods? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if this case freaked you out as much as it did me, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the world's most disturbing true crime cases. Because the truth is often scarier than any horror movie.